Greetings, programs, and welcome to an early look at Frostpunk. Although not that early, it's out in only a couple of days at this point. This is also not going to be anything like the kind of review I did for Surviving Mars, because I put way more time into playing that before I actually did any content on it. Just to give you some idea, I think I played about 50 hours of Surviving Mars, and I've played about 5 hours of this. Now, there has been a very limited preview build available for a while, which let you play through the first 10 days of Frostpunk. There's now a more complete build, but it's still a preview build, so this is not the final version. But having said that, there might be some things that are different in the final release version, but in terms of like stability and bugs or whatever, it's actually been a very smooth experience. Now, Frostpunk is both developed and published by 11-Bit Studios, who also released This War of Mine, and it is very much a game in that vein, I think. It is nominally a city builder game, but it really comes down to being a game about choices, and a game about trying to keep on a stable footing whilst the game itself is trying to push you off that footing, and so sometimes you have to make some very difficult decisions. But I don't think I've reached any of the really difficult ones yet. As I've said, I've only played about 5 hours. I'm only about 22 days into my current playthrough of the main scenario. There's going to be a couple. But the setup for the game is basically it's 1886, we're very much in the Victorian era, and the world has just gotten progressively colder and colder, and in a bid to ensure that some of humanity survives, the British Empire have sent some expeditions north, and it doesn't say where north exactly, to try and set up some colonies to survive. And basically your story is that of one of the colonies and setting up somewhere for people to try and live. So this is my city as it is so far. I'm not in this video going to show you the early game, but basically you start off with this thing here, which is your generator. It needs coal to run. Coal is a very important resource in this game. There's only a couple of resources, but they're all important. But coal is possibly the most important next to food, because you need coal for heat to keep people alive because it's very cold, which is part of the whole theme of the game, and obviously also people need food in order not to starve to death. The other resources are basically construction resources. You've got wood, steel and steam cores, which you have to go out and explore in the world to find. So the actual city building aspect is relatively straightforward. I mean, this is it. This is the build area. You're not going to be building massive, huge cities. But this, just what I've got here, is already enough infrastructure for, as you can see there, 248 people. So you could, I think potentially you could get up to like 1,000 maybe in this area, maybe a bit over. I'm not sure if there are any more high density housing options compared to what I have now, but the two different kinds of housing I've had, the main thing that is different between them is one is better insulated than the other. That's quite an important thing. People want to be warm, and if they're not warm, they're unhappy, and also they have quite a high chance of becoming unwell, and the more unwell people you have, the fewer workers you have, and so this is one of those areas where you have to balance. So as things are at the moment, I'm actually in a really cold snap because the temperature can go up and down, and it does this at various points. So we can see that actually in a little under a day, it's actually going to go up 2 levels, so it'll go back to -40, but then it's going to go down 3 levels in a couple of days after that. So this is one of the ways in which the game is just constantly giving you a little shove just to make sure that you're not getting comfortable. This is not a city builder where you can sit back and relax at any point. You have to be fully paying attention at all times in order to ensure that people don't freeze or starve or just want to leave, because this is one of the events I have going on at the moment. There's a bunch of people that want to go back to London. and I have to deal with it. So we've got some messages popping up here. Because it's so cold at the moment, we're actually getting people with frostbite, including people getting amputations happening. At the moment we've got quite a lot of people in medical care, and that's because it's so cold and there's not really a lot I can do about it right now. But we've also had a decision pop up. Now these will occur randomly as you're playing, and they can lead to you needing to enact various laws or to try and research technologies to build things that the decisions want you to build. But sometimes it's just this. Sometimes it'll just be an event that is a message that pops up. Sometimes it's random events where you get a bonus or a malus to one of these 2 meters here. Roughly speaking, high discontent, bad. Low hope, bad. So you want low discontent, high hope. And hope is continually going down, so you have to keep doing things that get your hope up, and you have to also keep doing things that try and keep your discontent low. And so this is one of the factors that's feeding into this group of people wanting to leave at the moment, is that I haven't been able to reverse that trend, unfortunately. I've not been able to raise hope high enough and discontent low enough that people are actually leaving this faction, essentially, and that's going to trigger very soon, so that might actually happen while I'm recording this video. So we'll take a quick look at, I guess, the technology and the laws, and then I'll show you the overview of the world. This is just a very kind of... I'm not going for a comprehensive video here, this is just an impressions video, but my impression after only 5 hours is I quite like it so far. But bear in mind, the early game of Surviving Mars was really fun as well. It was the late and mid game, or rather the mid and late game, that started to feel a bit more empty, but I'm thinking that's probably not going to be the case with Frostpunk, just because it keeps poking you and prodding you and trying to shove you off balance. So first off, let's take a look at the laws. You can only change them every so often. There is a cooldown, so what you start off with is these ones here, and then later on you get a choice of, well, one lot was purpose, and I can't remember what the other lot was, but they had a different theme to them as well. So there is some replayability in that you can choose to do things different ways, but these are the basic ones that you start off with, and you have various choices to make. So you can, for instance, well, one of the very early ones that you get poked about is this one, child labour. And so you start off with, you've got adults and children. The children don't do anything. So given that workers are a precious resource in this game, it therefore becomes logical that you do put these children to work. And initially you have the option of just putting them in safe jobs, so they'll work in cookhouses, for example, or in your various gathering operations. And they can still get injured, they can still get hurt, and even just signing this law will cause a slight negative reaction with the hope meter. But this then leads on to, well, you can put them in all jobs, potentially, and even more injuries and deaths can happen as a result. And this is a very, this is a good example of an early decision that you have to make, which way you're going to jump with this. Now, you don't generally have to sign anything, but as I said, the game will prompt you with those things on the screen. You get those indicators every so often where it'll come up and it'll say, do you want to do this, or do you want to do this, or do you just want to ignore this whole thing? Because that's also a choice with a lot of these decisions. You can just ignore it and put it to one side completely, but that also itself can have negative consequences. So you have to think quite carefully about which decisions you are taking. Now, there are some here that I might want to think about doing myself. I mean, there's a whole branch here that's around medical care, for example, and some of the buildings themselves that you can put down in your city, in your settlement, they are locked behind decisions. You have to actually choose something before you're then able to place it down in the world. The other way in which you unlock new buildings, now there's a whole bunch that you start off with as like basic ones, but is through the technology screen. This is the construction screen here, and it's all in this kind of radial grid pattern, as you'll notice here. But this is a whole bunch of the slightly more advanced kind of industrial ones. I've got a slightly more advanced food production, because they start off just as just having hunters. The way you do this is through the technology screen, and you have to actually build a specific building before you can start researching anything. So that's an important one to get early on. But research isn't free, it also costs resources. So again, it's balanced. Do you put some of your precious resources into, do you build some more homes, do you build that medical post you really need, do you build another hunter's hut because you're running low on food, or do you put some of that into research because you really need a certain upgrade? And even just unlocking various levels of research actually costs you resources. So it's in 4 different areas, as you can see, and some of them are new buildings, some of them are upgrades to existing buildings, some of them give you options in terms of like scouting, for instance. That's one of the things that the game prompts you to build early on, is a scout post, and so we can upgrade that and have higher scouts, or scouts that travel faster. And there's a whole part of it that's just dedicated to heating, because this is a really important part of the game, is keeping everybody warm enough to stay alive, to keep everybody from freezing to death. So you can't ignore any one of these areas. It's a matter of trying to find a way to spend what little you have to keep ahead of the curve, basically, because otherwise the game is just going to punish you and kill everybody. And I'm sure this is going to be one of those games where everybody dying is just part of the learning curve, and will help you understand what you're doing better next time. So probably the last thing to show you is the overworld. You start off with just your own city, but once you have built your scout, there are various locations that you can actually go and scout around, and you can find resources, and you can also find survivors. You actually only start off with is it like 80 or 90, something like that, in terms of like workers and engineers and children, which is the 3 different classes, if you like. 80 or 90 people, why don't I just say people? I don't know. But through having found survivors in other locations and brought them back to the city, that's how I'm now up to almost 250. So that is an important way to grow your population. I don't know how it works in terms of like people having babies and them, growing up to become adults, but I think this is all happening on too short of a time frame for that. I'm only on day 22 apparently, but I don't know how much time compression there is going on in this game, because sometimes, like Surviving Mars, for example, a single sol in Surviving Mars, a Martian sol is only slightly longer than an Earth day, except in Surviving Mars it's actually rather more compressed than that. You start your citizens having babies, your colonists having babies, a lot sooner than the actual number of souls would suggest. There are some other things going on with this screen though. I haven't researched the technologies yet, but there are some locations where you can also set up outposts, and you can also therefore then later on gather resources from outside the city, because all the resources in the city are quite limited to start with. You start with like just loose piles of things. So you'll start with a pile of a couple of piles of coal and a couple of piles of like crates, and then some steel wreckage. That doesn't last very long, so you have to then start getting to the next level of infrastructure, and then the next level of infrastructure after that, and so eventually you're going to hit a state where it's sustainable. But again, the game is just not letting you get comfortable at any point. You have to keep moving, you have to keep swimming, or you're going to die. So we'll unpause it, let it run a little bit. In fact, we'll actually put the game into fast forward. You might see there that I've got the various, workers working in various places. It's actually quite simple and straightforward as to assigning people. It's literally just, you click buttons and decide who's assigned where. Not every kind of person can be assigned to every sort of building, but there is a very special kind of worker, this guy, the Mark III Irishman. It's basically a big automaton, which is something I found whilst out exploring. You can't build these, you have to find them, but the advantage of these is that although a full load of workers working at a coal pile, for example, will be more effective than a single automaton, the automaton just works day and night, whereas your workers, generally speaking, only work during the day, although I think there is a law that lets you force them to work for like emergency 24-hour shifts, which I haven't actually enacted so far, but it might be useful. So we've got another decision, and this is to do with the Londoners event, and we can either, we've got some choices here, we can either just let him speak, which we don't want to do, we can chase him away. I can have my guards try and dissuade him, or I can disperse the crowd, which won't increase the number of people who are joining that faction, but some people may get hurt. But we're going to do that. We're going to see what happens, which possibly will not be a good thing. I don't know. We'll see what happens. It's a slightly tyrannical action, so discontent's gone up quite a lot, but we can try and offset that by... No, I can't. I don't have enough food rations for that. Okay. We've got a bit of a problem at the moment, actually. We've got raw food, but because it's too cold, because the temperature at the moment is so low, it's too cold for some of these workplaces to be operational, which is why we've got so many people needing medical attention, because all the medical tents are inoperational, despite... like even though some of them I've got the extra heating turned on, because I haven't put enough resources into upgrading my heating technology at the moment, that's starting to become a problem. So that particular decision that I've made to put the resources elsewhere, it's worked up till this point, but we're starting to get to colder temperatures. So I'm going to have to put some resources into that ASAP in this particular playthrough. So the other thing that's happened is we've actually gotten our scout going to the Frozen Grove, and this looks like it's just going to provide some resources, so we'll have to explore. And they've found some shallow graves. Oh dear. Okay, some bit of evidence of cannibalism there, but these are harsh times. So we'll take that lumber, that'll be brought back to the city, and I can send my scout on to this area, the Snow Cliff, where apparently there is a lone figure moving around. So back to the city, and yeah, let's fast forward it. I'm really hoping we get to these warmer temperatures, because we're getting some serious problems. But yeah, I need better heating technology. That's the thing that is kind of kicking my ass at the moment. So yeah, you do have the option of there's this button here, Overdrive. You can basically turn it up to the max and put it over the safeties, as it were, and you can do that for a limited amount of time, but if you have it doing that for too long, it'll break, and I think at that point you need steam cores to actually repair it. So you have to be very, very careful about that. That's a limited duration thing, but I think you can increase the duration that runs at by actually, you know, running through the technologies. I'm trying to think if there's anything else to show you at this point. Probably not. We appear to be full on wood, so we do need to build another resource depot. And I can actually show you how the building works. So when you go into the building view, you get this kind of grid, and you can see the various heated zones, and there's some unheated areas, but yeah, you're basically trying to keep everything in heated zones where possible. But because this is an unmanned area, what we can do is we can just put that in an unheated area, and that will get built. Might even get built now, even though it's at this time of the morning. I don't know, but that'll mean that our storage as a whole goes up, because we actually hit our storage limit there, because we're producing a fair amount of wood at the moment. That's something where we're fairly comfortable. Coal maybe a little less so, but we do have this this issue of it being very, very cold at the moment. In fact, we could put some more people into that gathering operation there, so that's fine. 2 of our people died. Oh dear. See, that's not good. We do have a cemetery. It was one of the early, again, one of the early decisions you can make, and you can have a cemetery built, which makes people less unhappy. But some of these buildings are just kind of the temperature's about to go up though, so things will get a little bit easier, I hope. So this building should be being built. Oh, people dropping like flies all over the place, but it is very, very cold. There we go, the temperature's going back up, so things are going to become operative, and people are not going to be just eating raw food anymore, which is a good thing. We have a whole bunch of people that are going to be having to be treated in the various medical tents. And you'll actually get indications when people are absent, sick, or... Oh dear, this is not good. Okay. Prisoners are running free. Okay, let's click that button there. We've built a prison, but apparently there's been a break or something. I don't know. I will address that. So, yeah. Do we not have... Okay, we do have people there, but... absent 5 out of 5. It's because so many people are ill. We just... This is a consequence of the decision I took earlier not to put enough, time into researching heating tech. So next time I play this through, I'll know to put a higher priority on that. So we can take a decision on. Let's check out the purpose tree. Forceful persuasion. What does this do? Oh, okay, this sounds like the beatings will continue until morale improves. So, we'll have the option of gently re-educating people, but it will rise discontent and prisoners might get hurt or killed. And then presumably this leads to, this glowy thing down here. That looks interesting. We might be turning this into a police state if we go down that path. We also have the option of propaganda center, which might be useful. Raises hope, shows detailed info on sources of discontent, could be very, very useful. Can distribute bulletins, but it's also going to rise discontent. But you know what, we'll do that because that sounds like it might be an interesting thing. So having taken that decision, it gives me a limited amount of time to then follow through. You can't just click on a thing like that and then just leave it. You have to actually follow through, and the game expects you to then build the thing that you've sort of said you're going to build. Now I can squeeze it in a heated area here. And you'll notice the green lines in the building view. Everything has to be connected by a street, which just simply costs wood, and the UI for building that's quite simple. That's fairly self-explanatory. The actual building aspect of this game is relatively straightforward. It's the balancing aspect that's hard, and we know that there's this temperature drop, and we can see right there it's going to go up again very shortly after it goes down, but it's going down by 3 levels and it's only going back up by 2. So yeah, the next technology had better be something heat related, although I am kind of doing that at the moment in that it's increasing the insulation of healthcare buildings, but we need to do something in the heating tree as well. So yeah, it's balance. It's a game about balance, and the game is constantly trying to shove you off balance, so you just cannot be complacent at any point. So I think there's not that much more left to do. I think what we'll do, just try and get within the span of this video, is we'll try and get this Londoners thing to happen and see what happens. Although it's probably just going to be a bunch of people leave the city. At which point I might need to go and try and find more survivors. Right, what have we got as an option? Steam hub upgrades. See, every one of these comes at a cost though, because every time you upgrade your generators or your steam hubs, it uses more coal. Although, that's an efficiency upgrade, so that's going to be useful. Range upgrades. Right, we'll go for the efficiency upgrade, and then maybe improved heaters, because the actual area I've got covered by the hubs at the moment is sufficient. So we need to make more efficient use of the coal resources that we're getting, and then we need basically better insulated buildings, and we need maybe the ability to run the overdrive for longer. So it's all just... it's trying to choose what seems most important, and you never quite know if that's going to be the right decision for the time or not, so I guess we'll see. Anyway, this That's actually fallen slightly. We might be able to make a decision to lower discontent as well. Yeah, there we go. So we can spend 10 food rations, which prepared raw food basically, and it will lower discontent quite dramatically. But at the moment we also have a fair number of people that we just don't have spaces for in the various medical tents. There is one criticism I have of this game so far, by the way. I can actually turn off the... Yeah, you can have individual buildings have heaters which use more coal but keep that building a bit warmer, and it's not every building that does that, but it'd be nice if there was an overlay to tell which buildings have heaters turned on at any given time. And it'd also be nice to have some kind of overlay where I could just specifically have highlighted medical buildings, because the game does give you some information, so you can see what you're... Like at the moment I'm in a coal deficiency because I've had so many people sick, essentially. We've got a small deficiency for food, bunch of people are sick at the moment, and then we've got housing conditions and also kind of overall production efficiency. So the actual information the game gives you in terms of this stuff is interesting and it's fairly useful, but it'd be nice to have kind of more overlays in terms of selectable stuff, but it will at least tell you, which buildings are not fully staffed or which buildings have people being understaffed because there's sickness. Another decision. Oh dear. Okay. Let's heat all the homes. This is going to be tricky, actually. I'm going to have to say... I'm going to have to take the decision that I can run the Overdrive on the Steam generator, but I can't do it for 2 days solid. So I basically, I can either say I'll do it and then break my promise, or I can just say I'm not going to do it. So I'm going to just disperse the crowd. I'm going to take that decision, which is possibly going to bite me in the ass later on. We'll see. Anyway, well, let's see if we can remember where all my medical posts are. Yeah, this is a thing where it would be useful to just have an overlay and have all the medical posts highlighted, but unfortunately I can't. Alright, there we go. The propaganda centre's been built, but we don't actually have anybody working there at the moment, so that is... we need to pull some workers from somewhere. Let's take 2 engineers from there, because engineers are they're your specialist workers. So there we go. I've got a little animation, or a little thing, because I've done a thing. Yeah, engineers are your doctors and your engineers and any kind of specialists. So the game doesn't kind of differentiate any more than that. So that's not going to be running at particularly high efficiency because there's only 2 people working there, but we do get some information out of it. Now, one thing I can do is actually upgrade some houses, because we've got enough. We don't have a huge amount of steel. That's the main thing that's stopping me, but we can do a couple where we can just basically go bop, 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 and that actually means that those will be warmer homes, because we've upgraded from the very basic tents to bunkhouses. And that wasn't like with the preview version. These were separate things. You would have to demolish the tents to be able to build the bunkhouses, and they've actually made it so you can just plonk down and upgrade over them. So that works rather nicely. And it also looks like it's kind of... that's neat. So because those 2 bunkhouses are together, it's kind of made a little linking structure in between them. So yeah, I mean the actual the graphics, you can't zoom in any more than this, but it's nice enough. It works quite well. But with these flags everywhere, it's starting to seem increasingly dystopian, isn't it? Anyway, so this we've actually, because we've managed to get hope up so high and discontent temporarily down to 0. We're seriously running low on coal, though. That's not good. That's because we've had so many people sick. Oh, apparently I hadn't done that as a thing. Right, let's just... let's have that as wood, because wood's the one we're kind of running out of the most. Yeah, that's really not good. Is there... oh, can I... have I got buildings where the heaters are turned on that don't need to be turned on? Just to eke it out slightly This is not good. This is really not good. Yeah, there'll be a bunch more people getting sick very soon. But yeah, we've managed to get the Londoners thing to be neutral, so people aren't inclined to join the faction, but we're not getting them to leave the faction. So yeah, so let's fast forward again. And the generator's shut down. That's not good. Right, that's gone away. So here we go. Right, the Londoners, they are leaving. So, hope is too low for me to just persuade them. I can order the guards to stop them. I can just let them go, or I could try and actually what decision do we go for? Well, I've only got 2 available. And the other 2 are essentially greyed out because we don't have enough of either thing. Well, we seem to be leaning in a rather dystopian, you know, and the more people we have in the city, the better. So, order the guards to stop them. Let's see what happens. Oh yeah, that's not very nice. Oh dear. Oh well. We'll see how many people I just ordered beaten to death, essentially. Not that many, but the prison might be full. 12 Londoners were injured, 4 died. Oh dear, okay. So that event is taken care of. We lost a bit of hope as a result, but yeah. The city's not in the best shape right now, so I don't know. I don't know if ultimately this one is going to survive, but this is a game there where you're just going to have to, you know, learn through playing, and failure is going to be part of that learning process. So, Frostpunk, my impression after just a couple of hours of playing it is I really enjoy it, but this is by no means a comprehensive review. There might be issues further down the line in the mid and late game that I'm just not aware of yet, but for now I am enjoying it, and I will be playing it a bit more, and maybe even streaming it a bit just prior to and after the game's launch. So I'll put the Steam store link in the description below. You can go and check it out if you're interested, and I'm sure there'll be other videos around on YouTube as well, as this is coming out soon. And all that's left for me to say is, if you found this video interesting, useful, entertaining, you can leave any comments about it below. You can hit the like button, you can sub to my channel if you haven't already, and as always, stay tuned for more.